Our next guest has been referred to as one of the most courageous newsmen and sometimes the scourge of Washington, depending on which side of the of his column you happen to be on, whether you are a target of it or someone who rejoices in what it does. He has, for years, exposed hanky-panky, a phrase that I don't think out of date in Washington. It still goes on, but so does Drew Pearson. Will you welcome him, please? Nice to see you again. I met you once on my old program.
I remember very well.
Have you been sued since then for anything?
Yes.
Have you? You know, I suppose lawsuits have taken up a great portion of your time, and I was amazed to read that you had only, I think there's only been one successful suit against you, I think, in all these years.
One, I regret to say. I lost my lawyer. President Eisenhower drafted him to become Attorney General, and he's now Secretary of State. I had to pick a new lawyer in a hurry, and I didn't pick a very good one, and I lost.
I'm sure he'll be pleased to hear that.
But he's a good lawyer, and he's a good Secretary of State, too.
You have frequently singled out somebody for several columns, and lately the new Chief Justice Berger has been has been the subject of more of your columns than I can remember in some time. Well, no, you wrote, I suppose the most columns that I remember were about Senator Dodd in recent years, but what is the crux of your worry about Chief Justice Berger?
Well, the president, the new Chief Justice, I think he was sworn in today, has said out in Santa Barbara about a year ago that he was against the Fifth Amendment and against jury trials, and also had some doubt about the American principle that a man is innocent until proved guilty. And my feeling was that the Senate should go into this and ask him some questions, which they did not do. They only gave him 1 hour and 40 minutes of cross-examination, didn't go into this at all, as against 2 months of keeping the retiring Chief Justice, Earl Warren, under scrutiny. And it seemed to me that it's such an important job, and these are principles which are embedded in the American Constitution and the American system, that he should have been cross-examined about them.
You've often said about Adam Clayton Powell, or you haven't always said this, but others have, that he was no more corrupt than white politicians, and that was a cliche that was said about him many times. Do you feel that's true now? In reading your book, I gather that it would be hard to be more corrupt than the rest of the politicians in Washington.
Well, Adam Clayton Powell really tried to do what some white men have done. For instance, he was kicked out of Congress for finagling with $25,000 worth of airplane credit cards. But some of the other congressmen just get free airplane trips. For instance, Congressman Mendel Rivers of South Carolina, who is chairman of a very important committee, the Air Force gives him a whole free private plane when he wants to go down to Charleston. So Adam didn't really do anything more than some of the others. He did wrong. And he paid the penalty, and he did another thing. He was mean to his wife, which you and I should remember, perhaps.
I don't mind the airplane tickets, but that's ridiculous.
That's too much.
I agree. I hope my wife is listening.
Are people fearful of you in Washington?
Well, they shouldn't be. I don't know. Some of them are, I guess.
When you enter a room, do you see people go, there's Pearson, and they straighten up and put things away?
Usually it's the other way around. I look around to see whether Tom Dodd is in the room or somebody like that, whether I should get ready to give him the cold freeze, as he was sure to give it to me.
Yeah.
And no, I don't think people are fearful of me anymore. Some are.
Have you had stories that are too hot to handle? Have you ever had to sit up at night and just think, I just can't print this, even though as a newspaper man it would?
No, usually I can print them, but the question is whether some papers will publish them.
Have you had that frequently?
Oh, yes. I remember the first columns on Senator Dodd, 1 or 2 papers didn't publish at all.
Is there anything you could predict for us? I know that you, well, it isn't a Drew Pearson interview without a prediction.
I'd kind of hate to predict the outcome of the New York election for mayor right now.
That wouldn't be easy.
I will predict that Nixon, by a very slender margin, will probably win the ABM anti-ballistic missile controversy. And more important than anything else, I'm going to stick my neck out and predict that there will be peace in Vietnam within approximately a year. And the reason I predict that is that some people might consider me too optimistic, but the president has, in the first place, I'm sure that he sincerely wants peace. But further than that, he has got himself out on something of a limb in out-Cliffording Clark Clifford. Mm-hmm. So he almost has to produce some kind of a peace. It'll be a compromise peace, and nobody will be very enthusiastic about it, but I think we'll have one.
Yeah. Just to raise another personality, Senator Dirksen, after reading your book, Senator Dirksen is not quite so lovable a character as he seems to be when you merely see him defending the marigold or something in the public.
Well, that's his favorite flower.
It is his favorite flower. But do you consider Senator Dirksen dangerous?
Well, he's not exactly lovable. I call him the basso profundo of the Senate. He's a wonderful actor, but I think he is not, and this is no reflection on the acting profession, let me say, but senators have to be fairly good actors at times, and he is, but unfortunately he has a law firm down in Peoria, Illinois. It's not a very big town, and all the big, or not all, but some of the big clients go down there to hire his law firm. And sometimes you wonder whether he's voting or championing his law firm on the Senate floor or the best interests of the country. And he votes consistently against the principle that a senator should not have to file his financial statement, and yet he requires the Secretary of Defense and other executive members of the cabinet to file their financial statement.
You sometimes feel that he is really one of the big centers of power in Washington, that it would be very difficult to do anything without consulting him. Is that accurate?
Well, the president has to consult him on a lot of things. You're quite right. Mm-hmm. He's held up some very important appointments. The Assistant Secretary of HEW, Dr. Knowles, because Dirksen is against him.
Do you think he has more influence with Mr. Nixon than he had with Mr. Johnson, or less?
About the same. I think both of those presidents really consulted Everett Dirksen a lot. I remember I went in to see President Johnson some years ago when he was a senator. He was a Senate Majority Leader, and he had a call, and Dirksen was in the outer office waiting to come in, and so Lyndon showed me out the back door. Really? So that I wouldn't bump into Dirksen. He didn't want Dirksen to know that he was talking to me.
Are all your friends ashamed of you like that?
Some are. Some presidents are.
Yeah. Did you ever have a president say, "I know what you're going to do, and don't do it"?
Yes, once.
Really? Can you tell us what it was?
Yes. Franklin Roosevelt, after Pearl Harbor, said that very emphatically not to publish the losses that we suffered at Pearl Harbor, and I didn't do it.
I see. Do you find that the people who are targets in your column are often those that you don't agree with politically more often than, you know what I'm saying? I mean, can you attack someone whose voting record you like or whose politics you sympathize with?
It's sometimes difficult to do that, but I hope that I don't pull punches on someone I like. Mm-hmm. It's a tough problem.
It must be like being a drama critic and having to review friends.
For instance, Lyndon Johnson, I knew him a long time, about 35 years, and he was very sensitive if you criticized him, but and he would get pretty sore when I did.
Yes.